Let's get more now on the roadmap to recovery released yesterday by the Victorian government and bring in the state's Chief Health Officer, Professor Brett Sutton. Brett, good morning to you.
Morning, Michael.
By the time we get out of this, will Melbourne have endured the world's longest, strictest lockdown?
I don't know how we compare internationally, but clearly we've had a long period of time where we've only been able to leave our homes for really those four essential reasons. It's certainly been tough. It's certainly been very long. But there are lots of countries that have ongoing challenges, that have ongoing restrictions in place. But obviously Victoria's at a point in time where we're still right in the thick of it, and the restrictions are still very tough.
There's been a lot of pushback, as you would have seen. Business groups are describing this as the road to nowhere. So they're obviously understandably concerned about loss of livelihoods, loss of jobs. What's your message in response to that?
Really that we've tried to map out a path that will get us gradually opening to the most normal life and work that we can get to. The risk that's been mapped out by the modelling suggests that if we open too early and if we don't follow these kinds of thresholds for the next stage and the following steps, then we'll be back in a situation that we've already been through in Victoria, and we don't want to be there again. We don't want to be at a point where we've got an epidemic curve that takes off again, where restrictions will need to be in place. And I understand how difficult it must be for businesses to see that it's not opening as early as they would have liked, but the risk, and it's apparent in the modelling, is that going too early with too many cases on a daily basis just puts it at serious risk of shutting down again in coming months. The
various thresholds in this step-by-step process are very high. For instance, by the end of October, when we hopefully move to stage 3, that is prefaced on the state recording a statewide average of fewer than 5 cases a day. Brett Sutton, if that was the case, New South Wales would be shut down already.
Well, New South Wales is in a different situation. They don't have the levels of community transmission that Victoria's got. They haven't had the kind of numbers that we've had to move through with these ongoing transmission chains that are really hard to get on top of. They're obviously chasing outbreaks and clusters, and they're doing a great job in doing so. And I don't want to provide commentary on New South Wales' approach, but we do know that whenever there are grumbling cases that just continue along, there's always a risk of it taking off again, as we've seen in South Korea, as we saw in Singapore. And we want to get into a position that most of Australia got to, which is driving cases down to a point where we know that we can sustain those low numbers for the long term, for months and months ahead of us.
Victoria's contact tracing system was criticised at the very start of this when cases were exploding. How confident are you that contact tracing is now up to speed to manage Melbourne's drift out of these lockdowns?
Certainly we're hitting the straps with the contact tracing kind of metrics and performance metrics that we're looking at each and every day. We're contacting all of those cases for interview every day within the first 24 hours. Almost all of them, 95% are interviewed in that 24-hour period, and all the close contacts are contacted within 48 hours. So they're the kind of thresholds that we know we need to get to. We're there. But we won't stop in terms of looking for ongoing improvements, obviously.
This is an elimination strategy Victoria's aiming for now, right?
Well, not elimination in the sense that we know the virus will be around globally. We know that it can always be reintroduced into Victoria from internationally or from interstate. But it is an aggressive suppression strategy that effectively eliminates community transmission. That's what we're looking to get to, and that's what's going to help guarantee or give us the greatest confidence possible that we can keep it under wraps for weeks and months ahead of us.
So how confident are you before Victorians get to COVID normal? There's this 28 period of no transmission, no community transmission at all. Realistically, is that achievable?
We know that most of Australia got to that. We know that we can get to that with the same kind of metrics with international jurisdictions that have taken the same approach. if they've hit those kind of thresholds, they've been able to get to that 28-day period with no transmission. So yes, I am confident that if we can get to those levels, that we'll be able to move into a COVID normal life that we're all desperately looking for.
I was speaking to a senior minister in the Victorian government last night, and this minister was saying that the chief concern in the government is non-compliance. I'm not talking about the tinfoil hat brigade. These are normal, sensible Melburnians who've been doing the right thing for 5 weeks and now looking down the barrel of much longer lockdown. How concerned are you that serious lockdown fatigue will disrupt this strategy?
Well, I know it is a risk, and we all feel it. We've all been subject to this, and some obviously, have suffered more in terms of work and livelihood, and I understand that fatigue. But if there were an easier alternative, if we could just go back to a normal life now, we'd be choosing that. These are difficult choices, there's no question, because it is a hard road ahead and it is a slow and steady approach. But the alternative is too awful to contemplate, really, and so I hope that people can hang on. But of course there's a risk that there's fatigue. As long as people keep in mind that we will get there slowly and incrementally if we can drive this transmission down.
Finally, aged care, of course, is where a lot of the cases are still happening. How confident are you in these federally regulated aged care centres' infection control standards are up to scratch?
Certainly there's been lots of work that's been done, and with the Victorian Aged Care Response Centre being in place, state and federal governments working very closely together to manage that. There's still lots of active outbreaks, but the new numbers in residents and in staff has absolutely stabilised, and active cases below 1,000 now, and very few additional outbreaks each week. So we're absolutely getting on top of it, but there have been lessons learned along the way, and we have to keep our eyes on the prize here, because aged care is absolutely vulnerable, and the elderly do die from this disease. It's a very serious illness in aged care settings.
Brett Sutton, before you go, you've been a fixture on national TV for months now, appearing often alongside the Premier at these daily briefings, around-the-clock work for so many months. How are you holding up?
I'm doing all right. We've all been sprinting since February onwards. We didn't realise it would be quite the marathon that it's turned out to be. But I'm trying to look after myself. I've got a family who are awesome, and colleagues who are absolutely checking in on me as I check in on them. So we'll get there. But it's not about me. Everyone's doing it tough here, and we have to look after each other.
Professor Brett Sutton, really appreciate the time this morning. Thanks for joining us, and good luck.
Thanks, Michael.